Okay. Hello, computer. People should themselves and also chat if they want to. I'm going to say the bracha in a minute. I see a mark. Is that Mark Horner?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're coming.
Hi, good morning, Stephen Rudin. Shabbat Shalom. Hi, Asha Chaim. Hi, Stephen.
Rabbi, I think you might have two microphones on.
I don't think so. Because this one, I have no audio in my computer. Eden, what do you think?
You don't have two microphones on. You did sound a little underwater. You just want to you sound better now. You just want to be close enough to the owl mic.
I'm going to turn off the fridge because you hear that background noise. So I'm going to turn that
I
off.
can't discern it, but that might be having an effect.
Yeah, let's turn that off and see what happens. Okay. Is that a little better?
That sounds good, I think. Oh, we just lost your sound, Rabbi Diane. You're disappearing again.
Lost my sound?
Now
Nope.
you're good.
Magic.
Okay. Let's see. 8:35. Hey, Eden, what's going on?
Now I can hear you. Are you moving? Is the owl moving at all, or it's?
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
So
Victor?
when you turn away, you're not. It seems you're not speaking directly into the mic.
Picking me up. Is the owl on?
You should be on. Let me see.
The owl, because when I turn away, it doesn't pick me up.
It's picking you up now.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
I can hear you.
Does it pick me up now?
Much less.
When I turn away.
Yeah.
Diane, when you lean in toward your laptop, that's when your sound cuts out.
No. Is this better?
That's
On this side? Okay. So there's the solution for now.
good.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are more problems, let me know. Okay? Okay. Hi, Roberta. Good to see you. Hi, Lori. Okay. So we are going to screen share the bracha over Torah study, and then we will dive in.
Yep. Just one more.
Can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Blind wisdom. You can't hear me? Oh no, I don't know what to do.
Now we can hear you.
Not so good.
No, I'm just gonna go forward.
Oh, oh no, bad again.
Diane, it look from what I can see on the Zoom screen, it looks like you've got your microphone on the laptop because there's no little microphone with a red X through it.
She doesn't have her microphone on the laptop. She's not connected to audio on the laptop. Rabbi Dan, maybe it would be better to connect to audio on the laptop and disconnect, and I'll mute the owl and see what happens. Should we try that? Let me mute the owl first, okay? Because I'm not hearing you at all. So see if you can get on the audio on your laptop.
I'm now joined on computer
Okay,
audio.
now we can hear you fine. Speak again.
Muted by mistake.
Oh, hold on 1 second.
Hi.
Okay, now I can hear you. Speak again.
Yes. Hello? There's an echo.
Diane, can you unmute yourself?
That's, hold on 1 second.
I can unmute myself.
Here, I'm now unmuted.
Now we
Hold
need
on.
to turn off the other.
Can everyone not
microphone.
speak who's in the room? Thank you so much. And I'm going to. Rabbi Diane, can you unmute yourself? And the Zoomagog is now muted, so can you unmute yourself and see if we can hear you?
Hello?
That's not gonna work.
Hold on. Rabbi Dan, I think the other solution might be to try signing out and back in. You're muted, so I can't hear you.
I'll sign out.
Sorry, everybody. Thanks for hanging in. Hi, everyone. If you just came in, we're having some technical difficulties with Rabbi Diane's sound. So she's just signing back in to see if we can figure it out. Rabbi Dan, I see you. You can unmute either one when you want.
Hello?
I hear you, but I hear an echo too. Do you want to try unmuting the Zoomagog? Oh, I think they're coming back in.
That sounded like they have two active sources in the room.
Yeah, I heard that.
I'm wondering if you can mute the owl and only have her go through her laptop.
That's what was happening that time. I'm not sure what the second source was because the owl sound wasn't connected. Yeah. The owl is the camera and the microphone.
Is there any chance that someone in the room also has an audio device?
It
Connected.
sounds like that's possible. So when they come back on, if there's an echo, we should double check that.
Yeah, I was actually just checking the Zoomagog to see if there's people without video that might be in the room. But I
Yeah,
don't
it could
know.
be a cell phone in the room there.
Right, but they would also be in the Zoomagog,
Right,
right?
they'd have to be
Yeah,
signed
yeah,
in for it to be an
sure.
issue.
And you didn't find anybody.
Well, I don't know enough of the people to know who might be there locally.
Ah, okay.
Perhaps this is the source of the proscription against using technology on Shabbat.
Sure.
You are quite a party pooper.
Mhm.
Just trying to be frum and snute.
It's great that we can unmute, so perhaps we should mute ourselves when we're not talking so that there's no accidental noise.
Yeah, that would be great if when they're back on. Let me just.
Meantime, I guess we could do a sneak peek at the source sheet.
You could.
Ooh.
Especially if we keep rhyming. This is all going with the flow, isn't
Okay,
it?
guys, so the conference room is back. So let's mute and see what happens.
Okay, is that better?
That sounds good.
Sounds great.
Let's not waste time, okay. Please share the source sheet immediately. Okay, everybody take a deep breath. It's all Torah, whether we're studying Torah or not. Okay, we're looking at source 1 on the page. Can someone look the mouse and get rid of this meeting is being recorded on there? Where's the mouse? Where's what Victor was just doing?
By you.
Oh. Yeah, we go. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go like this. Okay. Doesn't matter. I see. Sorry, coming. View. You know what, Ajahai, start reading the first text, please. So wait, actually, I'm sorry. Let me give. I'm on. I hear. Okay, here we are. So
Should we say the bracha first?
We said the bracha. We missed it. It was before we had all these sound problems. Sorry. If someone missed the bracha, you can say it to yourselves. To be blessed the sound? No, we bless the resolution. Okay. So what I want to do is an exploration of water some text on water that brings us to a parsha Chukat, and hopefully an understanding of why Moshe hits the rock and what that means. So I addressed some of this last night, but we'll do a bit of a deeper dive now, so to speak. And here we go. So the first few texts, I'm going to kind of race through a little bit. They're just kind of backgrounds, giving us information. And then we'll really dive into our own, the text in our own parsha. And today is a double parsha, Chukat Balak, but we're just... Okay, so the opening passage is about Miriam, who's not yet named Miriam. It's Moshe's older sister. And you'll see every time, and I'm not going to go into every instance of Miriam in the Torah, but every time she's mentioned in the Torah, there's some water association, which is really interesting. So here, is, the most famous scene where Moshe's mother places the baby Moses in a basket in the reeds by the Nile. So she's been hiding him from the Egyptians for 3 months, so he will not be killed as male Israelite babies were by decree of the Pharaoh. Okay, so I'm just going to go from verse 3. V'lo yachla od hatzpino. Moshe's mother cannot hide him any longer. Atikach lo tevat gomer v'tachmela achema u'v'zafet v'tasem ba et hayel v'tasem basuf al sfat hayel. So when she could hide him no longer, she got a wicker basket for him and topped it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child into it and placed it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. And the sister stood from a distance for knowledge of what would become. And I think most of you are familiar with what happens by the Nile and Miriam's incredible encounter with the daughter of Pharaoh. The two, so to speak, conspire to save the baby's life. And the baby's life is saved because the daughter of Pharaoh adopts him, and also Miriam arranges it so that Moshe's mother will suckle him for the first months of his life. So, moving forward. So here we are. We're by the Sea of Reeds. Again, reeds, right? Sea of Reeds. The people are terrified, and they, and this is like a very common trope, they want to go back to Egypt, right? Was it one for graves in Egypt that you brought it to die in the wilderness? And that happens again and again in Exodus and Numbers. And what I wanted to point out in source number 2. Oh, Eden, you're not screen sharing. Not Carol.
I'm sorry, do you want me to share the source sheet, Rabbi Dan? You're not on anymore? Okay. Apologies, one moment. And I'm getting a few comments about the sound. Your sound is coming from the owl right now? I'm sorry, are you speaking, you're using your computer or the owl? Because you're getting muffled again, unfortunately. Let me try sharing the screen.
We don't know what to do.
Okay. I will get the source sheet up in one moment.
So people can't hear me?
I'm so sorry to keep stopping you. It's just, it's a bit inconsistent. When you just said people can't hear you, we are able to hear you. It's a little bit inconsistent and muffled, unfortunately.
Earlier we wondered if someone had a cell phone on it.
Maybe everyone in the room should be muted.
And they don't live near here. And some of them are unable to get.
Rabbi Dan, we just heard you much better for a moment, wherever that sound was coming from.
How's that? Yes? Suzanne's clapping. Okay, we're gonna go forward. Okay, so until now, background, Miriam, water, saving Moses' life. And now, as the people stand by the Sea of Reeds, terrified, wanting to go backwards, what does Moshe say? In verse 13, in source 2, Vayomer Moshe el ha'am, al tira'u, hityatzvu u'ra'u et yeshuat Adonai asher asar lachem, aseh lachem, hayom ki asher re'item et Mitzrayim, hayom lo tosifu otam ad olam. So Moses said to them, have no fear, stand by. But that word stand is the same word that's used for Miriam standing watch over him. So again, we've got water, we've got reeds, we've got standing by. And witness the deliverance which Adonai will work for you today for the Egyptians, whom you see today, you will never see again. Okay, so that was source 2. Now we are going to source 3. So again, I just want to point out a few things here about Miriam and water. So in the first text, we have Miriam and water and saving the baby. The second text, we have the people by the water and Moshe using the language for what Miriam did when he was saved, right? When she was standing watch over him, using that language to address and hopefully calm down the Israelites. Now we're in source 3. And this is the tail end of the song at the sea when the people have passed through the Sea of Reeds, right? And Moshe begins by singing a song, and then there's a long song that the people sing, the song at the sea, and then Miriam picks up her drum, and let's see what happens. Vatikach Miriam haniviyah achot Aharon. And Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, for some reason she's not, we can go into that, but we're not, there's midrashic material on this. Why is she referred to as Aaron's sister, not Moses' sister? Achot Aharon et hatof biyada. So she picked up a hand drum. And if you think for a minute, I think we talked about this at one open book, what did it take for her to take a drum out of Egypt? What was she thinking? Right, such a gesture of faith. Right, it's like, yeah, we're gonna celebrate. We're gonna celebrate.
Nice.
And all the women went after her. Kol hanashim v'tetzena kol hanashim achareha b'tupim u'b'mecholot. And the women went after her in dance with hand drums. V'ata'an lahem Miriam shir l'Adonai ki ga'o ga'asus v'rochavot rama v'ayam. And Miriam chanted for them, or responded to them, really. Anan lahem, right? Ta'an lahem. Sing to Adonai, for God has triumphed gloriously. And then let's see what happens. Vayisa Moshe Yisrael miyam suf v'yitz'u el midbar Shur v'yalchu shloshet yamim b'midbar v'lo matzu mayim. Then Moses caused Israel to set out from the Sea of Reeds. They went out into the wilderness of Shur. They traveled 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. So there they are, 3 days in the wilderness, and immediately they are deprived. There's no water. That's serious business in the wilderness, right? Yeah. Verse 23, Vayavo marata velo yachlu l'shtot mayim mimara ki marim hem al ken karat shema mara. So even if you don't know Hebrew, what did you hear in that verse? What did you hear? The position of Mara. Mara, marim, right? Marata, like, you know, there's this intense alliteration. It's almost incantatory, one could say. And it says they came to Mara, but they could not drink the water of Mara because it was bitter. That's why it was named Mara. Now it says ki marim hem, which is also another way to write, or actually it is the way to write Miriam's name with different vowels. Mm-hmm. So Miriam's name is all over this. Right? So I'm not going to go through the rest, but I just want to show you this intense association between Miriam and water. Okay, Exodus 17, source 4. We're going on. So this is the first time Moshe strikes the rock, okay?
This isn't when he gets into big trouble.
This is not when he gets, this is no trouble here. Okay, no trouble here. This is when God tells him to strike the rock, he strikes the rock. Okay, so I'm going to read part of this in English and then I'll read part of it in Hebrew when it becomes relevant. From the wilderness of sin, again, this is all background. I just want to have this under our belt as we go into our Parsha, which is the next source. From the wilderness of sin, the whole Israelite community continued by stages as Adonai would command. So what you should know right now is this is early on in the wilderness experience. It's before Sinai, right? They encamped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Ein mayim l'shtot ha'am. The people quarreled with Moses. Vayarev ha'am Moshe, give us water to drink. Nu lanu mayim v'nishteh. And Moses replied to them, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you try Adonai? But the people thirsted there for water. And the people grumbled against Moses and saying, why do you bring us up from Egypt again? What'd you do to us? We don't want to be part of this project. This is your project, it's not ours. Leave us in Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst. Moses cried out to Adonai saying, what shall I do with these people? They're killing me. Before long they may be stoning me. Then Adonai said to Moses, pass before the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take along the rod with which you struck the Nile and set out. So here Moses has this magic staff, right? Take it with you. And God says, I will be standing there before you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock and water will issue from it, and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So it says here in Hebrew, Hineni omad lefanecha sham al hatzur b'chorev v'hikata b'tzur v'yitz'u mimenu mayim v'shata ha'am v'yas ken Moshe le'enei z'kenei Yisrael. So what are the elements here? No water, people complaining. God tells Moshe to strike. Are you okay, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm just deep in thought.
Okay, good. God tells Moshe to strike the rock, right? And Moses does so in the sight of the elders of Israel. So that's interesting. So this is early on again in the wilderness experience. And from here until our Parsha, no complaints about water. Complaints about manna, complaints about everything, right? You name it, but no complaints about water until Miriam dies. So what does rabbinic legend say? That for Miriam's merit, God gifted the children of Israel with a well in the desert. And it makes sense, right? Textually, it's like they don't have water, and then they have water, or they don't complain about no water, and if they didn't have water, they complain about water, and then Miriam dies and there's no water. So there must have been a well called Miriam's well. Okay, so let's see what happens now in our parsha. Bamidbar Kaf. We're now in the fifth source. Even. Thank you so much. Vayavo v'nei Yisrael kol ha'eda midbar tzin b'chodesh harishon vayashev ha'am b'kadesh v'tamat shamirim v'tikaver sham. So the Israelites arrive in a body. It says kol Israel, like there's some unity there. Kol ha'eda. In the wilderness of sin on the first new moon. Right, so this is 40 years into their wilderness experience, right? And the people stayed at Kadesh. So they stayed at Kadesh, so the holy place, right? The place is named for holiness. Mm-hmm. And what happens? Miriam dies there and was buried. And that's it. We don't hear any more about Miriam's death. That's it. No wailing, no public displays of grief. You know, when Moshe dies, the people wail. When Aaron dies, there's a big deal at the end of the Parsha. Right. Here,
was Miriam married? Did she have children?
Miriam is not married. No, Miriam in the Torah is not married. Midrashic legend marries her off. Right, so here she's a single woman, a leader in Israel. Right, and Micah, in the book of Micah, makes a really big deal of her. And the prophets, hold on, the host is starting to ask you to start your video. All right. In Micah it says, and Miriam and Aaron, and I set before you Miriam, Aaron, and Miriam. They're triumvirate, right? In that verse, they are equal. Okay, so going on in source 5. So she dies, and what's the next thing that happens? Lo haya mayim la'ida, and there was no water for the community. Vayikahalu al Moshe, and they gang up on Moshe al Aharon and on Aaron. And again, it's the PL form of that verb to gather, which means they're ganging up on them. Okay, it's an intensification of the word to gather. We're in the middle of source 5, now verse 3. Vayarev ha'ami Moshe v'yamru lemor v'lu gavanu b'gva achenu l'fnei Adonai. The people fight with Moses, saying, if only we had perished, if only we had died when our brothers perished at the instance of Adonai. They want to die. What is this instance of Adonai? So it's either the spies, when that sin, when many people died, or the rebellion of Korach. I'm not sure what it is. If someone has more of an idea, specific idea, drop it in the chat. And then it says, and again, it's familiar to you, right? Why did you bring this congregation to the wilderness? What are we doing here? We don't want to be here. Hold on, Nikki, hold on. I see you though. Why did you bring us up from Egypt? To bring us to this bad place. We're in a bad place. It's not the good place, right? For them, Egypt, good place, wilderness, and the promised land, bad places, right? They've reversed God's paradigm. It's really interesting. This is not a place with grain or growth, with te'ina and figs, with geffen, vines, rimon, pomegranates, and there's no water to drink. So they are really in existential crisis here. So much so, they want to go back to Egypt and want to die. Right? Those two things seem to come together again and again. Go back, die. Go back, die. Okay, Nikki, quick comment, because I still want to,
Very quick.
only 2 quick comments, and I still want to do some material here, and then I'll open things up, especially since we're running late today. Yeah.
Thirst is an incredibly bad thing. Thirst is much worse than hunger.
Yeah,
If
thirst is
anybody has
powerful.
ever experienced thirst, and it is 3 days, if you don't have water
Yeah.
for 3 days, you can
It's
die.
a serious thing. Thank you.
You can die.
Thank you.
It is
That's a good
unlike,
piece of realia
you
here.
could kill for
You'll kill because you're going to die.
at a watering
Right,
hole.
deeply uncomfortable. Okay, yeah.
This is kind of interesting about them requesting to go back to Egypt, because this is like kind of year 39 to 40 that this is occurring. So the generation that's there is not from Egypt.
So the generation from there, this is the next generation. The
And
previous
yet-
generation have died out, the older generation.
Right. And yet they're saying go back to Egypt, but
They don't even know Egypt. But
Exactly.
basically, maybe Egypt is code for let's go backwards to the safe place.
Right.
Right, they've inherited, that's
Right.
like their legacy. Let's go back to Egypt. Okay, who on Zoom wants to talk? I can't see who it is. Amy, is it brief or can you wait?
It's very brief. Okay, can you hear me? I see your lips moving, but I don't hear you. No.
We have to mute in order to hear her. We have to mute.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. Okay. Caleb was Miriam's husband, and Hur was Miriam's son, according to Midrash. And also, I just want to alert everybody that she died on the 10th of Nisan, and her well went down the river, the Jordan River, into the Kinneret, or the Sea of Galilee. And annually, a boat trip goes out into the Kinneret, filled with women dancing and singing, looking for Miriam's well. And they have a fantastic religious experience floating around the Sea of Galilee looking for Miriam's well. It's just a fantastic thing. If you're ever in Israel on the 10th of Nisan, don't miss it. It's only for women.
Class trip, Amy's organizing. You let us know when. Love it. Class trip. All right, now look at this gorgeous, gorgeous piece. I could not find it in Hebrew, unfortunately. Rabbi Kalanimus Kalman Shapira, and I learned this years ago with Rabbi Nehemiah Poland, who actually teaches at Hebrew College. I don't know if Rabbi Sharon's in our midst. I'll make this bigger. So, 1 second. So can someone in the room read this loud? Source 6. And oh, Eden, can you screen share again, please?
Yes, I will. One moment.
Thank you.
I'll do it. I'll do it, Suzanne.
Someone in the room already raise their hand. I'll call you next if it's relevant. Okay. So didn't someone read it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So Miriam did indeed die by divine kiss, but scripture does not apply the key phrase, Al Pi Adonai, by God's mouth, because her level of spiritual attainment was even higher than that of Moses and Aaron, since her efforts were not attributable to divine elicitation, but rather to her own self-generated efforts. She was not responding to the command of God's mouth. The source of her service was within her. It flowed internally from her. That is why the well, the flowing source of freely living water, appeared by virtue of her merit. Rabbi Kalanimus.
Yeah. So this is interesting. In terms of, I'm of two minds. I think this is really beautiful. Like, where's the internal flow that's connected to God as opposed to responding to externally imposed obligations? Right? And I think that's such a beautiful idea. And it's definitely
It's very Buddhist.
an idea that's embedded in Chassidut, right, in the Hasidic masters. However, on the other hand, it feels very gendered. Like, Miriam didn't need any attention. She didn't need the kiss of God. She was like, it was all internal. So, we didn't need the public display. So in any case, I think it's really a beautiful idea. And it's also beautifully linked to the fact that a well was created in her merit, right? She had the internal flow. And so God provided a flow, right, because of her merit to the people of Israel. And that flow stops as soon as she dies. And here's another piece, if I'm remembering correctly, but I couldn't find it, that when a person dies, no matter who they are, there's a certain flow that ceases, right? There's a certain flow for each of us. And we lose that flow, and that's part of the grief. What they brought into the world to sort of nurture the rest of us. Okay, so now we're going to go into, I can't see the time. What's the time?
It is 9:20.
Oh, thank you. Oh, good. We have some time. So happy. I'm racing a little bit because of our technical difficulties at the beginning. So I'll try to slow down now. Okay, so we're going to really dive into this text now. So here we are in our parsha, right? We saw Miriam died. There's no water. The people are flipping out, right? Another existential crisis. Now let's see what happens. ויבוא משה ואהרון בפני הקהל אל פתח אוהל מועד, ויפלו על פניהם, וירא כבוד אדוני אליהם. Moses and Aaron came away from the congregation to the entrance of the tent of meeting. So they're repositioning themselves away from these people that are ganging up on them, right, to God. They want to appeal to God. And they fell on their faces. And often they fall on their faces, sign of humility, but also sign is like, oh my God, what are we going to do now, right? Like, we don't know what to do. The presence of Adonai appeared to them. V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. So God is speaking directly to Moses. Kach et hamateh. Take the staff, v'hakel et hayida ata, and gather the people. You and Aaron, Aaron achicha, v'dibartem el hasela, and speak to the rock. So this is a little tricky. Take the staff, as Moshe did last time. Mm-hmm. Remember the command in Exodus 17 was take the staff and hit the rock. Right. Here it's take the staff and speak to the rock. And my friend Sharon said this morning when we were studying, so it's a little bit like Simon Says. Like, you have to be really careful. Like, what did Simon say here? Simon say, hit the rock? No. Simon said, take the staff and speak to the rock.
It's kind of a magic staff, isn't it?
And it's a magic staff, but that magic is not magic right now because the emphasis is on speaking to the rock. Now,
Moses famously a bad speaker.
and Moses is famously Moses is famously a bad speaker because Moses starts off without words, but then in the end, the whole book of Deuteronomy is in his voice, and he becomes a poet. Did you say something?
Just that he's a stammerer, but just adding to.
I see. Got it. And then, and I talked about this last night, I think this is so powerful. Speak to the rock, and what happens? In front of the eyes of all of Israel, Dinatan Memav. If you speak to the rock will give its water. Not my water, not water, will give its water. So here we're recognizing the subjectivity of a rock. Speak to the rock and it will give what it has.
Which isn't the same as Hashem's water exactly.
No, it's different. It's the rock's water. We're recognizing almost the agency of the rock. Right?
That's almost polytheism.
Okay, yes, but hold on. Let's go through this, and we'll have a wide-ranging conversation about this. And then you will water the congregation and their cattle. Okay, so let's be careful here. See what happens step by step. So Moses takes the staff, milifnei Adonai, from before God, kasher tzivahu, as God commanded. So far, so good. But what happens? Vayachilu Moshe ba'aron et hakahal el pnei hasela. And Moses and Aaron gathers the people, gathers the community, and before the face of the rock, vayomer lahem, and says to them, Shim'una hamorim, listen, you rebels. Hamin hasel hazet notzi lachem mayim. From this rock will we get for you water? But there's a trick here, right? So first of all, he's mad, right? He's yelling, he's insulting them. Listen, you rebels. But if you look carefully at that word morim, in verse 10, Eden, if you can point it, verse 10 in Surah 7, doesn't matter. No, I'm not talking to you. Okay. Okay.
She feels you spoke to her.
There's no vav in the word morim. So vav in the word morim would make it rebels, but without the vav, and without the vowels, what it is Miriam's name. So Moshe, in his moment of grief, right? That's the subtext, so that's the countertext. He's calling on Miriam. Listen, Miriam, I know how to get these people water. You gifted them with water in all these decades in the wilderness, and now I'm bereft, and they're ganging up on me, and I don't know what to do. Right? So it's a moment of sort of grief and desperation, calling for his sister. Okay, so now it's gone. Vayam Moshe et yado, and he picks up his hand. Moshe picks up his hand. Vayach et hasela b'mateu pamayim. And he hits the rock. And water, plenty of water, great waters come out and waters the congregation. Now there's another thing going on here. Not only are we reaching back to Exodus 17, where he hits the rock, but Moshe's career starts off with that verb vayach, to strike. Right? He strikes an Egyptian. He kills. Right? So this is a moment for him of regression, going back to the time that he struck the rock, and going even further to the time that he killed the Egyptian.
Regression and aggression.
What? Regression and aggression. Because when we're desperate, we regress and aggress. Exactly.
We feel helpless.
And he feels he lost his sister. Right? And he lost the water. And that he doesn't know how can he be a leader at this moment? He's in a moment of grief. You know what I was saying last night in my sermon is like, God's asking too much of him here. What does God want from him? And also like losing his capacity for language, right? In those moments, some of us, maybe not others, in those horrible moments you can barely talk. Variant. Okay. So let's just finish this passage and then I will open things up. Ya'an lo ha'emantem bi lahaktisheni. So God says to Moses and Aaron, because you didn't have faith in me, lahaktisheni, to sanctify me, le'enei b'nei Israel, before the eyes of all of Israel, lachen. Could people shut up their cell phones, please? Lo taviu et hakahal hazeh el haaretz asher natati lehem. You will not bring this congregation to the land that I am giving you. Hema me meriva asher rabu b'nei Israel et Adonai vayit kadesh bam. Those are the waters of Meribah, meaning that the Israelites followed Adonai, whose sanctity was affirmed through them. So let's just think for a moment, and then I'll stop talking in a minute, about this theme, this word of kedusha, right, of sanctity. So Miriam dies in Kadesh, and then Moshe fails to sanctify God before the eyes of all of Israel. And yet, right, the sanctity, let's see, those are the words of Meribah, maybe, okay, sanctity. So whose sanctity is affirmed through them? I'm trying to get the reference here. So I think their sanctity of Bnei Israel is affirmed here. Is that right? It's confusing last line. Asher Chaim, do you have an opinion on this?
I'm sorry, the key word, Vayit Kadesh, Lahakdisheni, God was saying, you did not Lahakdisheni, Vayit Kadesh, became holy. That's the same shore, if that's the lead word you were looking for.
Yeah, but I'm asking, who's becoming holy in that last verse?
Because it's in the singular, it sounds like it's talking about the Holy One.
The one love. The only one.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. That's right. So this is all about holiness and death. And my friend Sharon this morning was talking about how interesting this is that, you know, Miriam dies in the holy place. And this whole question of being sanctified in the face of death, you know, brought her to the fact of the Kaddish, right? We insist on holiness in the face of death. And here God, hold on, I see everybody, hold on one second. Here God is insisting on holiness in the face of death, even though I completely understand why Moshe does not have the capacity to do what God wants him to do. Okay, feels like there's more to say, but I'm going to stop screen sharing. Open this up, hold on a second. Okay, if you've spoken before, I'm not gonna call on you. I remember that you've spoken. Hold on, I'm just trying to get the congregation up here. How do I do that? Oh, God. Okay, no. Okay, so here, 1 second. Okay, too many. Okay, gallery, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna start there and go to the room. Okay, Jessica, Beth, Jay, Suzanne.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. Sorry, I'm not there in person, but I'm not there. Yeah, I heard the remarks. Okay, so I have an opinion. So my feeling is there's so much information, I've written at length about Miriam deeply, and there's so much information about what happened to the well, even whether that well was the well that appeared to Hagar in the wilderness, whether the well was gathered back up by Shekhinah, or whether, as Amy says, it went into the river. There's so many different midrash about that. But my feeling here is that we're talking about the divine feminine. Miriam brought the water, the rock, which is our earth, brought the water. And when Moses uses his rod, which is for me a symbol of the patriarchy, not to be phallic about it, but but he was asked to speak to the rock. He was asked to access the divine feminine, not to use the rod at that moment. So if God makes sense versus doing Simon Says all the time, and if we're looking at the divine versus the patriarchy, then to me, Miriam is a symbol of the divine feminine, which is also connected to earth and to water and to all that we can call on. And it's important to know when to call on that and when to use the rod.
Beautiful, Jessica. So yeah, and I kind of indicated this before, but just to flesh it out a little bit, like earlier on in the wilderness experience, was a time for striking, right? A time for like concreteness and sort of visibility. And now they've sort of moved, and especially we're about to go into the book of Deuteronomy, which is, again, all about language, and into the promised land. It's time for speaking. It's a time for speaking, and that kind of more gentle leadership. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, Beth.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I wanted to share something I learned a number of years ago from a brainiac geology professor at the Ohio State University. Stephen works with really nanoscale microbiology, and at the very tiniest scales that can be discerned, it's not terribly obvious what is a living thing and what is simply inert rock. The boundary is very much blurred between them. And there's some question as to what consciousness is and what entities have consciousness. We obviously have that consciousness. Animals have consciousness. And there's some question as to whether there is a net of consciousness that inhabits all living things on Earth. So if rocks and microbes and water are all intermingled in a way that is nearly indistinguishable, I think it's entirely plausible for the rock to have a metaphorical volition to give forth its water.
Yeah, and I think it's so beautiful that the Torah recognizes that sense of volition, that the rock can give its waters is like a stunning phrase. Okay, Jay, Suzanne, and I'm going to the room.
I just want to table for probably future discussion, but it just strikes me, the whole Vayikahalu, which I think we encountered last week or recently, ganging up, and Kahal and Neidah, and the relationship and tension between all those runs throughout. So we have Vayikahalu in Numbers, Vayikahalu, and then Kahal Adonai, 2 verses later. And then again, V'hakel et Haidah. And then at the very end, who will Moshe not lead into Israel? Kahal Hazeh. So this tension between ganging up, assembling, and the assembly, is so intertwined. And at some point, it would be great to unpack that.
Absolutely. The force of the collective and the force of that, that intensification, right, in the beginning of that word, that same verb to gather, which can be so lethal. And then it becomes central to the passage. Like, what happens before the eyes of the collective?
When is an assembly a mob?
Rabbi Diane, could you speak again? We lost you for a second.
Hear me?
Yeah, try one more time.
Hello.
Okay, I can hear you now. Thank you. I'm gonna add Suzanne to the spotlight now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I hear an echo. Does no one else hear an echo? People hear an echo.
From you, Suzanne, we're hearing an echo.
Only from Suzanne?
I know.
I have no idea. Sound.
I'm gonna go to the room.
Rabbi Dan, I think something must have shifted with your setup because we're losing you again.
What do we do?
Speak again?
No?
I just heard you.
There's an echo. Don't you hear the echo?
Could everyone in the Zoom not speak and let me just figure it out with Rabbi Dan? Thank you so much.
Eden, could you mute everybody?
Yeah.
Mute everybody. See what happens.
Can you hear me, Rabbi Dan? So you have to unmute because muting everyone just muted you.
How's that?
Okay, that's good.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so keep playing through the moment. Tomas.
So stipulating that standard language, everyone uses, I think it's very speculative, I guess. Every uterus is a pool of cells. Every womb is traveling well. Moses is drawn from water. Every baby is drawn out of water. The idea of traveling well is a description of a body that can grow a human.
Wait, let me just, hold on. Eden, is there anything we can do about this echo?
I'm not sure where, I don't believe there's a second device in the room. I think what we're hearing on Zoom is not a full-blown echo, but watery sound. I don't know if that's the most expressive way to put it, but I don't think, you are only on one device, correct, Rabbi Dan?
Okay, go on.
Anyway, I just wanted to center this idea that every womb is a traveling well, and everyone is drawn out of water. The waters break at the moment of childbirth. And, you know, it's the first of the month when Miriam dies. That seems important if you think of a well that returns and returns in a monthly cycle. When we think about water, when we think about blood, like, I think my take on this is it's about menstruation and pregnancy, and what it is to live in that kind of body, speaking of the divine feminine. And at the risk of getting just slightly esoteric, if two sentences of Catholic midrash, which is that the folklore is that the rod of Moses somehow becomes the spear with which the Roman soldier pierces the side of the crucified Jesus, and the Holy Grail, which captures the blood that is used in Passover, is actually the well of Miriam. And so the search for the Grail is the search for the well. It's all the same search. The rod is the spear. And so you can understand the kind of bodily interpretation of that. But I think it's the power of this legend, of how deeply we take it in and remake it. But I think it's really just the miracle of menstruation and pregnancy and childbirth. That's the pool of souls, is the womb.
So if we go backwards to the sea and the plagues, that's also another birth story.
Right, it's another breaking of water.
And it starts with blood. Yeah, amazing, thank you. Okay, Batya, Nikki, I think we heard from you, Tony.
May I ask what happened to me? I was going to speak.
We had doing my best here, just work with me, okay?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You know what, Suzanne, go ahead. Since there's no echo now, just go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I had 3 quick things. Would love to hear what anybody thinks. Miriam, I don't know a different translation than Mar Yam, bitter water, and that would be fun to look at. If there's other etymology now echoing, then that would be also interesting. Also, when Moshe presents the Israelites as just complaining, annoying people like, these people are driving me crazy. He literally says, they're going to stone me, God. These nuts are going to stone me. They're not nuts. They're dying. They're going to die if they don't get water. There's nothing wrong with freaking out or yelling, or, I mean, how else were they supposed to respond? I just don't think they should be shamed for it. And then the third thing at the end of the last source where it says, and something like, God was sanctified through them, but there's ambiguity. It could be through the Israelites or through Merivah, or through the water.
Exactly.
The waters of Merivah. Yeah, so that's like confusing.
Yes.
So, yep, that's it. Dibarti.
Yeah, Miriam can mean bitter water. It could also mean related to rebel, rebellion, right? And also to Merim, to lifting up. Okay, so we have Batya.
Thank you. So I see there are two forces here. There's Hashem, which is the holiest, and there's also Miriam, who for me represents the holy Shekinah, which is the holy presence. So you have the Shem and you have the holy presence in bringing other things forth. So, and the fact that the well, and especially the well, is the giving of Hashem through Miriam. And if I remember that she was, that all the women were not counted in the, they were not, there was no count of how many women there was when we had a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, it was a military census.
Women were not counted.
Correct.
So it's like we have Miriam saying, "What do you mean you shouldn't have not counted?" You know, she gave the well, and here we have it mentioned in 8 through Miriam's mention of Miriam's death, when we learned from it that during the entire 40 years they had the well. They had the holy presence. They had the holy Shekinah, for me, through Miriam's merit, and down below the same.
Okay, I'm going to move on now too. Okay, excellent, beautiful, thank you. I'm going to ask people to be really brief because it's actually time for us to end.
Just a tiny comment related to the Shekinah. It strikes me, is Miriam descended perhaps from a water goddess?
Love that. I have no idea. Let's look into that.
On it. You know?
Yeah, cool. Tony.
So going back to your word concreteness and Beth's talking about where the living and the non-living meet, perhaps Moses's big problem or central problem was in his grief, he lost that subtle connection between the ordinary and the holy, between the practical, taking care of business, and taking in the sacredness of the eternal now. And so whether you turn to Zen in Buddhism or Hasidism in Judaism or Buber, a modern day Rebbe, Buber says everything depends on discerning the meeting point between the ordinary and the holy, or the practical and the aesthetic even.
Beautiful. Now, if you think about this episode happens actually between Miriam's death and Aaron's death, right? And one can imagine that, like, with the ephemeral nature of life at that moment and you know, profound grief, like Moshe doesn't want to rely on language. Like too much is sort of, he's losing too much, right? It's just too, you know, it's like the unbearable lightness of being. He wants to like strike something, he wants to feel something hard. You know, he wants Miriam's body back. So yeah, that's beautiful. So I'm going to end with source 11. Eden, if you can screen share that. So this is a very beautiful and less well-known passage, very cryptic, where it says, So this is after Miriam's death. I think it's after Joshua's death too. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure. Umisham be'era hi ha'be'er asher amar Adonai leMoshe esop et ha'am ve'etna lahem mayim. So from there, the people came to Be'er, which is the well where Adonai said to Moses, assemble the people that I may give them water. So I'm not sure which time that refers to. Could be Exodus 17, it could be Exodus 20.
After the death of Miriam, though.
Either before or after.
Okay.
Or Numbers 20, I mean. Az Yashir, and then Az Yashir Yisrael et Hashira Hazot. So then Bnei Yisrael, right? Now the people of Israel are singing a song, right? And remember the Song of the Sea starts with Az Yashir Moshe et Hashira Hazot. Right, so it's the same language from the Song of the Sea, but Moshe was singing. Now the collective, the congregation is singing, right? Ali ve'er enula, right? Rise up, O well, respond to her. So who's the her? Is the her Miriam? Right? What are they trying to like sort of resurrect Miriam's well here? Right? It's fascinating. So there's this beautiful midrash. I didn't have a source, so I didn't put it on the source sheet, but my friend Sharon introduced it to me. And it says, it teaches that when the children of Israel stood up to utter the Song of the Sea, Moses did not allow them to say it by themselves. He was like a teacher, standing next to a student and reciting the lesson with them. And that's why the text says, then sang Moses and the children of Israel, right? Because Moses was like saying, okay, sing it this way and repeat after me, you know, how a good song leader would. And then the Midrash goes on to say that 40 years later, when Israel had mastered their lesson, it took them 40 years, they proceeded to sing the song of the well by themselves. And there in Parshat Chukat, right here, it says, then sang Israel. So they've learned the song. And they've also learned how to access water. Instead of complaining to Moshe, here they're digging themselves. They said, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the Universe, it is up to you to perform miracles for us. It is up to us now to utter song. So now, and see what it says afterwards. The well which the chieftains dug, with the nobles of the people started with maces with their own staffs. And then they go from Midbar, wilderness, to Matana, the gift. And from Matana, right, the gift, to Nachaliel, the place where the water streams in the wadi or flows in the wadi. And from Nachaliel to Bamot, so they end up in the high place. This is such a beautiful, sort of symbolic, almost poetic verse, or it is poetic, of the people sort of owning this process of like drawing water for themselves instead of ganging up on Moshe and Aaron. So I want to bless us the Shabbat, Chukat Balak, right, this double portion, with, the flow of Miriam, like that internal flow, as Rabbi Kalanimus Shapira says, right, that's not determined by any outside command or any outside impetus, but it's like that internal flow that we're in touch with that sustains us and the people around us.
Amen.
See your services. I'm so sorry for the technical glitches. Hopefully we can resolve them by next week. I'm not sure how yet, but we'll figure it out. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Thank you. From Torona. Got the Holy Presence.
Okay.
Is within us.